Hi and welcome. I'm here just so happy to be with Naomi Rayman, who's a colleague, dear friend, and a wonderful teacher who actually did last year's Passing the Torch mentoring program with me. And we're together because Naomi's here to go deeper with our work together, and also really addressing a trauma that you had recently, several months ago, in an accident. So I've asked her to share, something about our work together, and also what happened and how we're addressing it.
Thanks, Wendy. Happy to be here. I am from Northern California, Bay Area. I have a studio in Marin County. And Wendy's right, I started the last year's Passing the Torch. And the beauty about passing the torch, one of the many things that's beautiful about it, is that within that program it enables you to meet other colleagues, but to also experience a wider view of one's teaching. And to that end, when I injured myself, I found that I needed different vocabulary to speak to my own body than I was using to address my students. So I will explain to you what happened, because I think being here at the Pilates Center of Austin is a tremendous resource for those of us who've gone through the passing the torch, as well as your clients. It's a valuable resource center. At the beginning of February, I was on a bike that was unfamiliar to me, and I fell off that bike and landed on the left side of my body and fractured my femur, my thigh bone, and was taken to a trauma center nearby, so 7 hours away from where I live, different doctor, different facility than I had ever been in. And instead of having, fortunately, a hip replacement, I had 3 screws permanently implanted in my femur that keep my femur attached to my hip, we're hoping. And as a result of that trauma, other fascial areas were traumatized as well. For example, I had to use a walker in my rehab because I couldn't put any weight on my left leg for 3 months. So in using the walker, as a 62-year-old woman who has some arthritis in my wrist joints, I was now straining those those wrist joints to their max. And I felt that strain travel from the wrist joints all the way up my arms to my shoulder blades and my neck. So while I was babying my left side of my body, I was relying heavily on these joints that were becoming increasingly strained. So I cautiously began physical therapy, cautiously returned to my Pilates equipment, but the reason I'm stressing the word cautiously is I felt fearful and was rather timid in my approach to what I knew could be a great resource for me. So I came back to visit Wendy so that I could reconnect with the vocabulary and how that vocabulary translates into movement, real movement, so that I could once again find the relationship in my whole body. And the tensegrity that Wendy talks about, that meaning the way the fascia comes together to hold one's structure and keep it moving with ease, is so critical, especially when your body is not operating in a familiar way. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm very happy to be moving with with Wendy. The thing that's great about being back at Pilates Center of Austin is that wherever you are in the studio, you're hearing the wisdom that we all took in as part of the passing the torch. But now I am listening to it with different ears because I'm applying it to myself.
It's beautiful.
So, thanks for letting me come back.
Beautiful, beautiful. And one of the things that I'm really struck by in just hearing you speak is finding that wholeness, especially when there's an area that is compromised or traumatized. And I'm really reminded of when we first started yesterday, how just going into the beginning with the gentle fascial dog flow series, which is one of the core practices that we do here at the Pilates Center of Austin, which is a gentle movement series, just using a chair, a mat, and sometimes a wall, and how you can do that at home. And it's one of the favorite practices because it's so empowering. What was interesting that you mentioned, because you were familiar with it, have studied it, but also here you are, as you say, coming back from an injury and then having your wrists be more compromised and hurting. And how you mentioned yesterday, I'm really struck by how I'm not feeling a lot of pressure in my hands and my wrists because I'm sharing the load throughout my whole body in just the way the exercise is set up. So it's so powerful to, especially when we're not feeling optimally well, to really look at what am I doing? How am I doing what I'm doing? That is bringing my body back to its origin, which is its brilliance, what it knows how to do intuitively. And it's that reminder that we each need, and sometimes we just need the safety and support, which is what trauma is looking for in order to be resolved, is setup, safety, support, and an environment where we give ourselves permission to not feel pushed, and to really take the time to listen, pay attention, and have the areas that are feeling injured, have them lead the movement.
I think that's so well said. And I'd just like to add that when you are wounded, whether it be trauma or if you are headed for a joint replacement of some sort, it becomes your defining relationship. And much like Wendy talks about all the time in her teaching, we're a lot more than that one piece of our body. We're a lot more than our one muscle that we're working. We are in relationship with our body. So it's great to be here and be reminded how the body can help that area that's traumatized, and how actually that traumatized area can teach the rest of the body. So
beautiful.
You'll see that in the movement we do next.
Beautiful. So stay tuned. We're going to share something wonderful with you. Good. And welcome back. Hi. So once again, I'm here with Naomi Rayman, and we're now looking at how can this simple movement support opening up, allowing a soft opening through her hip, allowing soft shoulders, relational support. How does everything get supported from hand to foot, head to foot, like this? So something that we did that was very interesting. You want to say a little bit about just changing the setup right here, Naomi?
We've been practicing this roll down with the Arcus bar, and I had mentioned to Wendy that my left hip was the one that I fell on, and broke my femur, the hip flexors were getting increasingly tight. So Wendy ran over and got these
An extra dog clip.
There you go, extra dog clip, and it alleviated the strain on my hip flexor. The relationship hand to foot, spine, and sit bone has changed because of that extra inch and a half.
So brilliant. So just to kind of build on what you said right there, we first of all love the Arcus bar because that gives a more ergonomic release, hand to shoulder. Just notice how the difference in my hands, I'm kind of mimicking what Naomi's doing right there, that allows my waterfall of my shoulder, allows my clavicles to be wide, allows this, which is very different than this straight bar. So there's a
sense of already being where I need to be with the Arcus this way, as opposed to a traditional roll down bar for me, because with the roll down bar I feel like as I'm rolling I'm needing to get somewhere with my shoulder blades. Here I'm already there, and it allows me to feel that waterfall down my back. As I move, I'm feeling the relationship sit bone to heel, back of the body, allows me to find more width. I don't want to say quicker, but it's more efficient, I guess I would say. And then the coming up allows me to imagine more width than I actually have, I'd say, because I can see with my peripheral vision that the Arcus bar, it's got a couple more inches on either side of my hands, so I'm envisioning that that's part of me too. So
that's beautiful. So Naomi's talking about referring to peripheral vision, and that's basically just softening your eyes, allowing your eyes to soften so you can see the sides of the room, actually allows your back to widen. The other thing is setup is everything in the work that we're studying. In the 3 core perspectives, setup is everything. So putting the dog clip, the extra dog clip, as Naomi mentioned, allowed her to not feel pulled out of herself, which caused the hip socket to react. So when we relaxed and allowed the bar to come to her to feel her waterfall, her hip sockets could release. There's an initial setup. It also mattered how the distance, where her hips are in relationship to her feet. So if her hips were too far forward, she'd have to work hard. Pull her shoulders down, pull her belly in to roll down. But notice how she's moving is with just enough. It's just enough effort for the movement.
Right, because when you think about why Wendy's having me do this exercise, to open up my hips, to feel the back of my body, which is something I haven't been feeling very much lately, and yet all the equipment is in the front, then that is the roll down bar, I'm looking at this mat that's giving me a relationship to my feet. It's interesting that because I've got this bar in my hands, Wendy is asking me all the time, what is the relationship of my hands to my shoulder blades to my deep belly, to my heels. And what I can feel now is that whole line of connection, because I'm not straining, and there's no tension, which is so lovely when you experience pain and trauma.
This is great. This is great. 2 pieces I'm going to bring in right now to talk about out of what Naomi's pointing out. One is, why do we have the mat rolled under her feet? It's, as she's saying, to wake up sensory awareness through her feet. So she gets a deeper sensory support of the receptors reaching through the tripod of her foot and waking up. So there's the down. And then that ignites, wakes up the lift, inner ankle, inner thigh, internal belly along the front of the spine to the inner ear. the other piece that's going to wake that up again and even deeper, we actually spoke about earlier, because we did this earlier, and that's why I said this would be so valuable for us to do, to show teachers on the video blog. So we're going to show you something that we did earlier that also wakes up another important distinction, which is the relationship of the hamstrings, the back of the leg, to the front of the spine. So the hamstrings function both as grounding support. There are brakes to slow us down, but also they work with the adductors, with the inner thigh, with the front of the pelvic floor and the front of the spine to create postural intrinsic support. So what I did was I used this mat and rolled it up initially to put it underneath, because Naomi was feeling more, too much quad. And so I said, let's stimulate your hamstrings. So I put that underneath and I said, what does that feel like? And she said, well, that's interesting. Which is such a broad term, you know.
It's fascinating.
Fascinating, yes. But that wasn't what I was looking for. I'm looking for valuable. And actually, what wakes up, we're both looking for that. What wakes up the deep intelligence of her body? So that, what I saw was, that was too high. This is where a prop, in our work, and what we're studying, a prop is a tool for change rather than a crutch. So we're always looking for communication. That wasn't communicating properly, because what we're looking for is, now what I did was I flattened it out instead of having it be too thick. And when I flattened it out and put it right there for the sit bone to heal, say a little about what you noticed.
Well, I'm struck by the use of the term waking up, because when you think about waking up, you don't fall out of bed to wake up. You just need a gentle alarm to get out of bed. So traumatizing the muscles so that you can feel them is not what we're looking for.
Right.
But we're looking, I think, for that relationship that allows you to feel an area that was asleep. But this is not a hamstring exercise, is it? It's not just, nor is it just an ab exercise, nor is it just a shoulder blade to belly. It's a belly exercise. It's a complete integration of all these very important movements that then I can take to the floor and walk out of here feeling much more movement with ease and grace.
So the beauty of what she's referring to is, how do we do an exercise so and have it so embody what we need that it just feels like it feeds us on a very deep level. It's very different than exercising. So it's sort of like one of my colleagues, Alan Herdman, said many years ago, I said, do you do a lot of workout? He said, not really. I just like to work out in a way that I move, so that I do very simple things, like I'm teaching and using my body well, and that helps me to just stay healthy. And I just so agree with how he thinks. You know, I think that's really what Pilates is all about, is how are we moving in any exercise rather than do it as a thing. We're asking, what is the roll down? What is it in relationship to whole body health? And how does that bring us into ourselves more fully?
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, sweetie, so much. So beautiful to be with you. See you again soon.